Um, 15 years, guys, iMedia. Who here was here at the first one? Oh, there we go. 1, 2, that's it. 2 of us. That's it. So today, I know the topic, is this working? You got it? Nothing? All right, well, we're getting that going. So I know you're seeing the subject of the talk today is around evolving towards customer-centric digital singularity. Now, that sounds very futuristic. I think most of you are kind of expecting, all right, what is this kind of future world of digital singularity, and what does that look like, and how do we actually get there? But we're actually not going to be talking about so much the future, as much as what we're going to talk about is how do we cultivate better relationships with people, okay? I'm going to ask a question out here right now. When we think about digital, what is digital? It's not a rhetorical question. Somebody tell me what digital is. Shout it out. What's digital? You guys are all in digital marketing. What is it? Nobody can tell me what digital is. No one? Listen, I will stand up for 20 minutes until somebody gives me an answer on what digital is. Because this is the room that should tell me what digital is and know what digital is and own what digital is.
Ones and zeros.
What is it? Ones and zeros? That is actually probably the best answer I'm going to get out of this room. That's right. Digital is just a format. This clicker's still not working, guys. Oh, there we go. All right. Digital is just a format. It's a great format for how we use it in terms of how we evolve technology, right? But what's important to recognize is that it is just a format. It's a format that we're using for technology. For what? To enhance the human experience. I think all too often we get caught up in what digital media is and what digital marketing is and all of the different technology platforms, and I think we lose sight of what the purpose of digital technology actually is. And it's about enhancing the human experience. So let's get the stats out of the way. Sorry, eMarker, I'm going to put you out of business because everything you need to know about digital technology is right here on this chart. Okay? Since the beginning of time, right, humans have driven technological evolution as a means to enhance the human experience. And we're going to continue to do that until we can no longer advance as a species or don't want to advance as a species. But that's the role of digital technology. We're constantly looking towards new ways of innovating technology to enhance the human experience. Now, we are an interconnected world, right? Chris opened up the show talking about the interconnectivity of our world as a result of the internet and as a result of digital. Now, being an interconnected world is actually fundamentally changing our social nature. It's changing how we learn, how we share, how we develop new ideas, right? How we form community. Now, if you think about the millennial generation, now, I know some of the older folks in here like to think of the millennials as the entitled narcissistic mutants of the human race, right? But they're not, I assure you, right? Millennials were the first generation to grow up with the internet. They're the first ones to grow up in a socially connected digital world. So that means they see the world a lot differently than older generations. They see the world and the global community as we see our local communities. It's much more smaller now, right? So if you think about how we've evolved as a species and how we've evolved in terms of how we collaborate and communicate and ideate together, you know, what that is driven by a history of how we migrate and how we communicate, right? So if you think about what we've done with communities, the internet has just now increased the interconnectivity of disparate social systems. And as a result, we now can form communities without the needs of migrating and without boundaries. And what this also means is we've opened up new ways for us to communicate and collaborate with one another. And as a result, we're forming a much more intimate relationship with the world. When you start to have much smaller communities, and if you think about your local communities, or even just thinking about your families, right? You become much more empathetic to one another's needs and interests the closer you are to one another. And this is not an anomaly. This has been happening since the beginning of time. From our family units, to tribes, to towns and villages, to cities, to countries, to continents, right? The internet is now just made us one big global community. Now, with community also comes our need for connection, responsibility, and looking out for one another's best interests, right? This is empathy. That's what's starting to happen, right? And we're seeing it happening with each passing generation. We're going to become much more empathetic with one another, okay? Now, mobile devices. The mobile internet is probably the biggest milestone in terms of the next stage of our social evolution. Mobile devices have become an extension of self. When you think about how the internet has brought us all together and how it's allowed us to communicate and collaborate and share information the way that we do, it's changed the way we think about our health, how we acquire goods and services, and ultimately it just changes the way in how we engage with the world and how we see the world and how we think about the world. Now that also means it changes the way that we solve problems. It changes the way we define our sense of self-worth. And yes, it changes the way we form communities. Mobile devices truly are an extension of self. However, with the emergence of virtual reality, with artificial intelligence, we're going to find that we're going to go beyond an extension of self. We're going to get to a place of an integration of self with the connected world. We can't even imagine what that's going to be like. We have no idea what that means in terms of how we evolve socially, what does that mean for modern civilizations, or how we're going to really kind of what the future technology is going to be after that. I mean, there's a lot of theories around that technology is going to evolve to a place where it could actually far surpass all human intelligence combined, and really, if they wanted to, eliminate and wipe us out. Now, hopefully we won't get to that point. So digital singularity, though, is going to be a very intimate place if you really think about being immersed into the connected world. Now, we may not be there yet, okay? This is pretty much what it looks like today. This is where virtual reality is at. But listen, don't laugh off the porn industry. For those of us who were here in the 90s, we know that the porn industry were pioneers in digital media. Every single one of you in here has benefited from the porn industry in the 90s, right? So don't be so quick to laugh them off. This also brings up another point in terms of us as marketers. We get so caught up in focusing in on our own desired outcomes that we don't think about what our customers want and need from our relationship. I guess it's marketing masturbation, all right? That's what it is. It's marketing masturbation. We need to think about not just what our needs are, but how do we really want to form relationships with customers? And what does that relationship look like? Do we want a one-night stand? Or do we actually want to find true love that's going to last a lifetime? And that's what this is about. It is about love. Customer love, brand love. This is about how do we look to satisfy the needs, values, and aspirations of your customers. Customers are people. They're not numbers on a spreadsheet. Every single one of you in here is a customer. Even those of you in the room right now that are on the brand side, guess what? Even people that are selling to you in this room are your customers. Whatever products you're marketing, whatever you're selling, you're dealing with nothing but a room of customers here, and we're all customers of one another, all right? So we need to stop thinking about brands and customers and companies and all in this hierarchical state. And we realize that we all are connected and we all are dependent on one another, and we all are working to better serve one another's needs, values, and aspirations as a community, as an industrial community, as a national community, and as a global community. Now, when we do get to that point of singularity, all right, it's going to be a very personal place. I mean, if you think mobile devices right now are personal, what happens when you're immersed into a virtual world, right? That's an integration of self. Right? It changes the way we actually function in the world. We'll be much more open, but we'll also be intimate. We'll be more social, but also reserved. And we will be collective, but we'll also be much more personal. So that also means that as businesses and as brands, you need to think about your role in creating value in that kind of an environment. And guess what? We're getting there today. I know some of this sounds like this is probably not going to be 50, 60, 100 years off. This stuff's coming quick, and it's coming fast, right? And consumers are already thinking about what it means in terms of the types of brands they build relationships with and who they let into their lives and how you're going to provide value to them. So this stuff's happening today. For starters, we need to stop throwing banners in their face saying, look at me, look at me. That's catcalling, right? Catcalling doesn't work in relationships, has it ever? Doesn't work in your interpersonal relationships, does it? Why do you think it would work in advertising? Some throwbacks for you old timers in here. And don't think you're smooth talking to anybody with your native advertising, okay? Like you got some game out there. This is about how do you really want to build your relationships with your customers. Now, the advertising industry has been pretty funny how it's evolved, right? We went from this concept of push to pull to then trying to predict what the customer wants to pull so that we can push it to them before they pull. Why do we keep pushing? When has being pushy ever worked in your personal relationships? Why do we think that being pushy to customers is going to be any different from being pushy in your interpersonal relationships? People are just people. Now, in our quest to monetize and track interactivity, we've really lost sight of the human element. We've actually traded sight for impressions, sound for an unmute button, touch for the click. We've sacrificed everything that it means to be human. Frankly, for metrics that don't have any real genuine attribution towards creating real business value. So now, scent and taste will be the last two that we try to tackle in the world of virtual reality. Fortunately, thanks to what Jeff said, we'll be losing our scent, our smell, so we don't have to worry about that one being perverted in any kind of way, right? Now, human-centered design, which is now where I spend a lot of my time, starts with understanding people at their core, right? This is about understanding the psychological and the emotional drivers behind people's behavior. This is about getting to know your customers. Think about every relationship you get into, right? It's about getting to know each other, right? It's understanding how do you satisfy those needs? How do you satisfy their values? And how do you help them achieve their aspirations through the products and services that you offer? Now, a lot of us talk about data. A lot of us do a lot of research. We do a lot of different types of persona development. And I spend a lot of time looking at customer personas. And the way I can tell you is a lot of them don't get at the true essence of really building relationships with customers. Now look at this list. I know this list can be a little overwhelming to some people, but look at this list. Really look at this list. This is the foundation of knowledge for every healthy relationship. Who here has been married, has been in a relationship with somebody for at least more than 2 years? Okay, good. So let me ask you, is there anything on this list that you don't know about your significant other? Maybe some cognitive stuff, but other than that, if you really look at this list, guys, this is how you build relationships. We get so caught up in our vernacular that we create as an industry, right, as a means to try to demonstrate our value in the types of products and services that we're offering and trying to differentiate ourselves competitively, but we're losing touch of how to just really connect as people. And that's what it really means as a business. Businesses emerged as a means to provide value in enhancing the human relationship through the exchange of goods and services. It's that simple. So why do we keep taking it somewhere where we think that's other than that? Now, in order to really cultivate healthy relationships with customers, you need to meet them where they're at. You need to understand where they are in their journey in terms of how they're satisfying their needs, values, and aspirations, and determine where you can provide value in that journey, right? It is about the entire customer experience. I know we get so caught up in our, focusing on our digital entities, but digital touch points and physical touch points, Listen, from the customer's perspective, they are not differentiating between their physical and digital selves, okay? And as marketers, you shouldn't either. You should be looking holistically at the customer experience, right? And really understanding all of those different touch points along the journey and understanding interdependent relationships between all of them. How many people here are doing journey mapping or mapping the customer experience in any kind of way? Handful? Okay, great. Who wants to tell me when the customer journey starts and ends? When does it start? When? That's great. I'm gonna take that one as a starting point. When does it end? Yes. So when you think about the brand experience and you think about the customer journey, you know, you could look at it as the first time somebody's exposed to your brand, all the way through the marketing process, the sales, customer service, all the way through to how they're sharing their experiences in social media. But the reality is, if brand loyalty is high and customer retention is high, that experience could last a lifetime. And yes, in terms of being from where they're born, especially in certain industry categories, kind of going back to Jeff's example around the macro influences, right? If somebody perceives an entire industry in a negative way, well, the experience in the journey starts long before they're even exposed to your brand. You have to start to think about your industry, your brand industry that you're operating in, right? So, when you think about the customer journey, it's about partnering with your customers. This isn't about trying to just push advertising on them, but understand where they're at and be a Sherpa to them. Guide them, get to know them, right? Support them on their journey so that they can achieve their goals as fast and as easy as possible. That's how you move from being a one-night stand to a life partner. And as brands, if you're trying to build a sustainable brand, you need to focus on building those life partnerships with customers. I'm not even going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You guys killed it. All right? So yes, I am the third person up here already out of 3 people speaking that's bringing up the hierarchy of needs. The only thing I'm going to mention on the hierarchy of needs is that as a brand, if you really want to get down to the essence of human-centered design, it starts with satisfying these needs. Regardless of whatever your products and services are, this is your starting point. If you're not providing value against the hierarchy of needs in any kind of way, you need to really rethink your business models. Now, it's not about the impressions you serve. It's about the memories that you create that's going to build real business value and drive sustainable growth. We have a saying at Strativity, the margins are in the memories. This is about deep emotional engagement with customers, right? This is about really getting to know them, getting to understand them, understanding what turns them on, what excites them, what impresses them. When you think about how you're building customer loyalty and retention, the memories become your KPIs. Every single one of us in this room can think about that brand that they had an experience with that was exceptional, unlike anything they've ever had before. You don't remember what it would cost, right? You don't remember how you went about purchasing it, right, or what that process was like, but you do remember how it made you feel. Focus on the emotions. It's important to satisfy the functional and the emotional, as well as the psychological needs of your customers to really cultivate those deep, high-value relationships. Think about every relationship you've ever started. Now, I know we talk about storytelling. I hate the term storytelling. I think it's much more about collaborative learning, right? This is about building a relationship together. Think about the dating process. Every single thing that you go through in your interpersonal relationships and how you date and how you court one another, it's the same thing between brands and customers, okay? First, right, you're thinking about how does that person look, sound, how do they speak to you, right? Then you're wondering, how does that person make you think? How do they make you feel? Then you're wondering, well, what do I need to know to perhaps pursue a relationship with this person? And is this person going to improve or enhance my life in some way? And what's going to emotionally move me to some sort of action? And then after engaging in a relationship, how satisfying was it? And based on that experience, how will I share that with the world? And is this person going to continue to satisfy my desires and needs? And that's where you really start to build loyalty. That's how you really start to build that relationship. And you know what? You have to be passionate and you have to be committed, because that's the foundation of any strong relationship. So I know I'm out of time, so I'm going to bang through some of this stuff rather quickly. The first step to really thinking about how you're engaging the customers and building that relationship, invite them into the process. Do journey mapping. Understand what that experience is like for them. And also doing a moment of truth analysis. So that's really understanding what the pain points are and the unmet needs of your customers, and how do you develop strategies to satisfy that. And then doing a needs state assessment. So this looks at what are the functional and emotional needs and expectations of your customers, and how are you designing strategies to satisfy those. And then from a relationship driver standpoint, what are the wow factors? What are the things that can go above and beyond, right, to really create an exceptional experience for your customers? And invite your customers into the process. Co-create the journey with them, right? What does it really mean to create an optimized experience for them? And let your customers tell you what that is. And then, how are you going to operationalize it? So what are the new processes? What are the new tools that you need to implement to deliver the optimized experience? And from a digital transformation standpoint, think about the tools that you need to implement to enhance the customer experience, right? This should be part of the entire process, not operating independently. And then lastly, how are you engaging employees to deliver on that experience? Okay? Now, I am going to kind of sum it up here really quickly. It is around the organization, okay? You need to think about how you're operationalizing this. From a human-centered design standpoint, you need to think about how you're creating a culture of innovation that's going to deliver that optimized experience. So how does digital satisfy your processes? How does it satisfy the functional needs of your customers? And then from the emotional side, how you're engaging employees and your customers to really drive and enhance that optimized experience. Now, every single one of you in this room contributes to creating that brand experience. Every single one of you in this room is responsible for delivering that exceptional experience to your customers, right? How you connect and interact with people is ultimately going to determine how people see your brand. You do it every day. You're doing it right now, right? And lastly, as a brand, if you don't love your brand, you're never going to be able to deliver that experience, right? They always say in relationships, you have to love yourself first before you can love another. You better love your brand. I love my brand. Do you love your brand? The Singularity is going to be a very intimate place. All of our hopes, dreams, and aspirations are going to live and die in the Singularity. As a brand, how are you going to provide value to enhance the customer experience? How are you going to cultivate real relationships with your customers? Right? How are you going to develop a culture of innovation? And how are you going to be the best brand that you can be? Be better, create tomorrow, make it exceptional. All right, thank you.